Indonesia President Joko Widodo arrives for bilateral talks. Gulf leaders issue a stern warning to the national government. And good news for coffee growers in Morobe.
This is National EMTV News with Tokana Hasavi.
Good evening and welcome back to another working week. The Gulf Provincial Executive Board has sounded a strong warning to the national government and the developer of the Gulf LNG, Total, to consider downstream processing into the province. Governor Havila Kavo warns that if this Provincial Executive Council's decision is not honoured, then there will be no Gulf LNG. The PEB warns that they will not accept any proposal for liquefied gas to be pumped into Port Moresby.
If the developer of the Gulf LNG project refuses to build a downstream processing plant, refinery and develop a township in Gulf Province, there will be no project. This warning was issued by Gulf Governor and his provincial executives today in Port Moresby.
Gulf LNG project must be developed in Gulf Province and not anywhere else outside of the province. We want to see that Gulf Province and its landowners have a better equity participation in the project. And that position has been made known to the developer, to the state.
As plans for second liquefied natural gas underway between major stakeholders like Interoil, national government and the developer Total, the Gulf provincial government says they want this project to have a great impact in the province. With lessons learned from the ExxonMobil-led LNG in Southern Highlands, the Gulf people refuse to have a repeat in the province.
Gulf Province's stand on no pipeline policy is fully supported by the East Kerma.
Priorities for businesses will be given to the locals.
Not knowing exactly what government of the day is doing. There is no awareness, there is nothing done, and my people are in the darkness.
This is the resource of Gulf Province, and the whole of Gulf people must benefit from this project.
They demanded that no pipeline will be extended to Port Moresby. The provincial executive members call on the developer and the government to respond to the demand. Governor Kavo says this will give opportunity for Gulf to achieve its Vision 2020.
That the maximum benefit of this project must underpin development for the province.
A forum will be organized later this month to get the views of all Gulf people before the provincial government makes its final stand. Quinten Alomp, National EMTV News.
The people of impact areas where the proposed Pacific Marine Industrial Zone will be built continue to demand for it to stop, driven by fears of environmental damages and socio-economic concerns. Today, a local MP who has continued to stand against the idea, Sumkar's Ken Fairweather, said he isn't aware of the benefits it will bring to the people in terms of business opportunities. Fairweather says the government has to spell out exactly what spin-off businesses the people will own when much of the workforce and material will come from China. MTV's Bethany Harriman reports from Madang.
To understand how important the environment is to the people around the impact areas of the PMIZ, we spoke to Bernard Siroy, a local from Burup, an impact village of the project.
Now this look at something government must talk one past must talk protect them, save him, make him security more this then by me plan must know the work. Otherwise, same by me talk no kata so long all thinking.
In these pictures, Bernard with his wife using the lagoon to go fishing at night. They catch fish for consumption and then sell them for an income. Bernard's concerns are similar to people of 5 other villages who fear the loss of the quality of life they have around the oceans. On May 4th, a meeting was held at the Riwo village to discuss the impacts of the project on the village. The socio-economic concerns included women going into prostitution when the 10 proposed canneries are established and the environmental damage caused to marine life. The people's demand to stop the PMIZ has support from academics, former politicians, including present ones.
Make illogical sense to me. Totally illogical sense. Murdering fish, that's what we're doing. Murdering dolphins, murdering turtles, murdering everything that's out there.
The Sumka MP says the project is getting bigger, with many rescoping over the years, and the people are being left in the dark while they stand to lose their whole livelihood.
And the people know less and less and less about it. Secret deals are done in the night in the villages with mostly failed politicians at that, who are trying to, shall we say, take over this project.
The people's concerns are very specific. They want to know how the government will protect their environment from the 10 proposed canneries. They also want to know how they will participate in the spin-off businesses that the government has been talking about. And they've also raised concerns about the socio-economic well-being of the women and children. They say if the government can't answer these concerns, then they want the PMIZ to be stopped completely. Bethany Harriman, National MTV News, Medang.
Rabaul District has made a special call to the national government and its provincial government to assist in setting up a provincial disaster emergency plan. Rabaul District Administrator Marakan Uvano says East New Britain lacks a proper emergency evacuation plan for disaster-related events. Their call comes after continuous earthquakes in the province, raising concerns amongst the people on their readiness for any big disasters. MTV's Edwin Fidelis reports from Kokopo.
It's been nearly 20 years since the last major eruption devastated the town of Rabaul in 1994. The evacuation of the people to safer areas that time was based on an effective provincial disaster emergency plan. Over the last 24 months, East New Britain has been hit hard again by a series of earthquakes and a minor eruption. This string of events has yet again brought to light the outdated provincial disaster plan that is now 20 years old.
We don't have the funds for any major, especially in an event of any eruption or, as I've said, tsunami.
What have come to the fore were numerous calls made by people from disaster-prone areas to the provincial government to set up a provincial disaster plan. Now, having a well-established disaster emergency plan in place would mean swift evacuation of the people and avoiding casualties at all costs in an event of a disaster.
Now, with this disaster preparedness, Milaka scheme national government giving some funding income, prepare on this plan because you miss a wait when the time you come out now you miss sing out and me no good. Give some funding income so that people can prepare already long time disaster come up.
East New Britain Province remains a volcano and earthquake-prone region, but questions on the preparedness for the province to respond to a major disaster still remained unanswered. A disaster evacuation plan contains plans to evacuate the people, food supplies, emergency exit routes and other essentials that are needed in times of disasters. But that is a step that East New Britain Province haven't quite reached yet. Edwin Fidelis, National MTV News, Kokopo.
The Morobe Province has seen a dramatic rise in coffee exports in the 2013 to 2014 period, from just a little over 50,000 tons to more than 100,000 tons in a space of 12 months. The figures released by the Coffee Industry Corporation places Morobe in second place as a coffee-producing province after the Eastern Highlands. The growth is due to a movement of coffee cooperatives owned and managed by village communities in rural Morobe. Our Lay Bureau Chief, Scott Waide, brings you tonight's MTV News special report.
In Lay, a meeting of movers and shakers in the coffee industry. This is one of the few times heads of village agricultural cooperatives have come together for mutual discussion. The men and women come from all over Morobe and represent cocoa, rice and more predominantly coffee cooperatives. What these groups have done has been relatively phenomenal. From 2013 to 2014, they drove up coffee exports by 50%, making Morobe the second largest coffee producing province in Papua New Guinea.
I'm big presenting by Camel coffee. Me am a straight. Me am close to, I think me dog by Metrometele. Me man also not Mr.
Statistics from the Coffee Industry Corporation show that in 2013, Morobe's coffee export figure stood at an average of a little over 57,000 tons. By 2014, when the cooperatives began organizing their operations, the export figure jumped to 113,000.
We believe that is not the end of the story. We have a long way to go. And we also firmly believe that we can be the #1 coffee producing province in the country.
20 to 10 years ago, we producing coffee. So we come some last 5 years or so, work lo coffee and go down. And go down due long some problem of some long road, long money, na all equipment we have long supporting work long coffee.
One of the main drivers behind the cooperative movement is Neknasi, a group of over 200 farmers in Boana. Neknasi built its own roads, bought its vehicles, and now has more than 4 million kina in cash in the bank. What's different is that these cooperatives are building their companies on a solid base. They own the land, the coffee trees, and by the end of the year, they'll have their own mill. Now they're slowly taking over market share, previously dominated by large coffee export companies. Scott Waide, National EMTV News, Leh.
And National EMTV News continues after the break. Stay with us. Good to have you back with National EMTV News. Firefighters who responded to the Erima fire on Friday said the water pressure was ineffective, making it difficult to save one of the 2 buildings destroyed. Fire Superintendent for Gerehu Fire Station, John Garerisi, explained that the fire was too big for them to contain. He also said investigations are continuing to establish the cause of the fire.
No backup.
Superintendent Gareresi said though firefighters were called to the scene after receiving a fire alert from their head office in Baroko, they ran out of water and were not able to save the next building, JY's Clothing. He said the 2 buildings were meters apart and it was easy for fire to catch the second building within minutes. At least 3 fire trucks responded but were unable to put out the fire.
We tried our best to contain the fire, but due to the water problem, the pressure, so we could not contain the fire. So the fire decided to spread through some of the buildings which are connected to the house or the building which was actually on fire.
The Erima fire destroyed 2 shopping centers, a Kaiba and a clothing mart. The Kaiba Peter Trading is owned by a national but leased to an Indian, while the clothing mart is operated by an Indian couple.
Somewhere in Habastu or Abinun, fire.
Kove Pereke, who was present at the time the fire started, said it took less than an hour for the fire to burn down both shops. Shop owners had refused to speak on camera, but said most of their goods and recently purchased supplies were destroyed by the fire and they were unable to save any of their personal belongings. They said the cost of the damage could not be calculated at the moment, but they estimated that it is in the hundreds of thousands.
According to the size of the fire, so right now, Erima fire is it's a structural fire, and I'm so upset because the firefighting operation was normal. It was normal, but because the pressure of the water was not good enough, that it was ineffective.
Superintendent Gareresi said investigations into the cause of the fire will be headed by the investigators from the fire department and is yet to begin. There were no injuries or casualties recorded. Tekla Gunga, National EMTV News.
A 2-week induction course for the Force Support Battalion ended last Friday with 36 PNGDF soldiers presented with certificates as Special Police Constables. The 36 Defence Force personnel are now tasked to carry out policing duties alongside police based at Layagam in the Enga province to clamp down on law and order issues and illegal mining in the Porgera Valley.
This is the third induction course for the PNG Defence Force soldiers deployed to the state of emergency call-out operation in the Porgera Valley, Enga Province. 36 Defence Force personnel were certified under the National Constitution and the Police Force Act to carry out policing duties. They are now part of the Operation Special Police Constables. After the national government extended the call-out operation for another 3 months, most soldiers and police personnel have been sent to Porgera to control illegal mining and other law and order problems. Former Police Commissioner Sir Ilageno says the Special Police Constables are now tasked with a big responsibility.
You will have the power to take someone's liberty away when you are making an arrest. You're taking someone's freedom away because you have authorized by the Constitution and by the Police Force Act to be given a special constable status and authority. So you have power, so use it properly.
The support battalion will work with the police mobile unit MS-12 based at Layagam, Enga Province to clamp down on illegal miners. Meanwhile, over the weekend, 56 illegal miners were arrested by the Force Support Battalion. Stanley Over Jr., National EMTV News.
People living with disability should be included in community programs and activities regardless of their impairments. This was the underlying message this morning at the presentation of 400 Trukai Fun Run T-shirts made to the Cheshire Disability Services by KK Kingston Limited.
This morning, KK Kingston Limited handed over 400 Trukai Fun Run T-shirts, which will be given out to each student and resident, while the rest will be sold to raise funds for the Cheshire Disability Services programs. The programs include residential care, health and protection, inclusive education resource center, community-based rehabilitation, physiotherapy and Young Voices PNG.
Now, in their minds, they know they're going to be walking, they have a t-shirt already, so it's really helpful. One way or the other, it's really helpful in making them to look forward for that day. Part of it, we promote, it's like a good exercise for them too.
Cheshire Programs Officer Joyce Kopere says it has become tradition that the students look forward to participating in the Trukai Fun Run each year and commends KK Kingston for the kind donation. Mrs. Kopere has been attached to the organization for over 10 years and says the organization depends entirely on donations through support from partners like KK Kingston. She says one of the programs Cheshire promotes is inclusive education, where people with special needs are encouraged to participate in community activities to boost morale and mental stimulation.
Organization that received the highest number, which it's 400, they also have bought for some other schools. I thank KK Kingston for that, giving us our t-shirts. Also, we are in partnership with KK Kingston. We have the relationship well before, in which they also provide some detergents to assist us for maintaining the cleanliness of the organization, and especially the residential care and protection unit.
Cheshire Disability Services in PNG is a non-government organization that caters for people living with disabilities and needing special care. Currently, the non-profit organization has 130 students undergoing special education and 21 residents living at the premises with around-the-clock care from staff and carers. Cheshire has 30 centres established globally, with the Hohola Centre being the only establishment throughout the whole Pacific. Vanessa Knight, National EMTV News.
And now we take a look at the finance news. The Kina closed unchanged at $0.3695 US in the interbank market, and at Bank South Pacific, our Kina was fetching $0.3620 US, $0.4538 Australian dollars, 0.3193 euro and 42.95 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, gold closed the day lower, while copper, cocoa and coffee all closed the day higher. Meanwhile, palm oil and copper closed lower, while crude oil closed the day higher. And finally, on the stock market, the Dow Jones closed at 267 points higher, the ASX closed at a point higher, and the All Ordinaries closed at 2 points higher as well. The Indonesian president's visit, also West Papuans protest, and the opposition leader turns down dinner invitation. I'll bring you those stories coming up after the break. Stay with us. Thanks for your company and welcome back to National EMTV News. The President of the Republic of Indonesia, Joko Widodo, arrived in Port Moresby this afternoon. He and his wife, Lady Iriana, are in the country on a 2-day state visit. The state visit will see President Widodo hold business talks with the business community and bilateral discussions with Prime Minister Peter O'Neill.
The ceremonial park at the Jacksons International Airport in Port Moresby was abuzz this afternoon as members of the disciplinary forces assembled among high-level government officers to receive Indonesia's president. On the tarmac, the presidential plane, the Boeing business jet BBJ-2, taxied towards all who awaited his arrival in the drizzling rain. A 21-gun salute was fired by the PNG Defence Force as President Widodo and his wife Lady Iriana stepped off the plane. They were then welcomed by Deputy Prime Minister Leo Dion, Foreign Affairs Minister Rimbing Pato, NCD Governor Powes Pakop, and the Minister for National Events Justin Tuchenko. An initially planned inspection of the Guard of Honor did not eventuate because of the unkind weather. The guests and their delegation were quickly led away following the national anthems of both countries. The President and the First Lady arrived at the Government House to pay a courtesy call on the Governor-General, but not before a brief stop to sign the visitors' book. This evening, President Widodo and his wife will be at the Parliament, where they are expected to meet the Speaker and later on with Prime Minister Peter O'Neill over a banquet. Deli Waigeno, National EMTV News.
Well, minutes after the Indonesian president's arrival, West Papuans advocating freedom lined the streets with messages on banners. The group, with support from locals, raised the West Papua flag, the Morning Star, at the 6 Mile roundabout. Their messages carried sentiments for West Papua's independence and the genocide and human rights. West Papuan leaders are determined to have an audience to meet with President Widodo tomorrow at the Indonesian embassy. 5 political prisoners have been granted clemency by the Indonesian president. The president has also lifted the media blackout in Indonesia's disputed province of Papua. Upon his appointments last October, Joko Widodo promised to improve human rights records in Papua. He greeted the prisoners at a ceremony in Jayapura and declared a fresh stance on the province of Papua. Human rights organizations have disputed hardline approaches previously taken by the Indonesian government, where dozens have been jailed for simply raising the West Papua flag of independence. The move came a day before President Widodo's arrival here in Port Moresby for a state 2-day visit. Opposition leader Don Pollier has congratulated Indonesian President Joko Widodo for the release of 5 political prisoners in Papua province of Indonesia. Pollier also praised Widodo for allowing journalists into the region. However, he called on Prime Minister Peter O'Neill and other MSG member countries to work closely with the Indonesian government to strengthen human rights activities in West Papua. He said it's the start of good things ahead. However, says the opposition has no access to hold talks with President Widodo on his official 2-day state visit in Papua New Guinea. The opposition has been invited for dinner with President Widodo tonight at the State Function Room, but Pollier says it's short notice and he will not attend.
Minister and other leaders of the Melanesian spearhead countries in the region, namely Papua New Guinea taking the lead, the Solomon Islands, Fiji, Vanuatu, to an extent New Caledonia, especially the Kanaks, to get together immediately for a special Melanesian Spearhead Group meeting to address or to take advantage of the announcements of positive steps taken by the President of Indonesia to enhance the interest of self-determinations of Melanesians in the Melanesian, the Pacific nation.
To other news, National Polytechnic Institute Director Graham Bidang has appealed to students to resume classes. His calls come after 1,800 students are not attending classes for almost a month now. A referendum will be held on Wednesday to decide on students who want to resume classes and those who want to continue the boycott.
This notice was served to National Polytechnic Institute students today. It comes following the ongoing boycott at the institute that has dragged on for almost a month. The notice states that a referendum will be conducted to identify students who would like to return to classes and those who want to continue with the boycott. Director for National Polytechnic Institute Graham Bidang says there are some students who have come clear about their concerns on resuming classes.
There are students who would like to return to classes but are fearful of repercussions from the factions of students who would like to continue.
The boycott started from students' complaints about rundown facilities at the campus. Broken water pipes like these can be found on some of the buildings. Mr. Bidang says the Electoral Commission will be engaged in conducting the referendum. Colin Barilai, National EMTV News, Leh.
Polling that will determine Bougainville's political future status has begun as Bougainville enters into its 2 weeks polling schedule that started today. The onus is on its voters to elect leaders that will speak on referendum. MTV's Fabian Hakelitz files this report.
First day of polling today, witnessed by Papua New Guinea's Electoral Commissioner Andrew Trowan. The third autonomous Bougainville government general election enters into its 2 weeks polling schedule. This election is important to elect a government that will lead the autonomous region on a path towards referendum. Over 173,000 eligible voters are set to cast their votes to elect the president, 39 constituency members, including 6 others from the reserved seats for women and ex-combatants. Polling began today and ends on May 25. Voters in other parts of the country also have chances to vote: Goroka, Leh, Madang, Port Moresby and Rabaul. Fabian Hakelitz, National EMTV News.
A group of asylum seekers from the Nauru Detention Centre will be resettled in Cambodia very shortly, says Australian Immigration Minister Peter Dutton. The move follows an agreement between Australia and Cambodia in September last year. However, advocates say Australia is irresponsible and avoiding its international obligations as Cambodia has a poor track record of refugee treatment in the past.
The legal way to Australia is closed.
The deal with Cambodia is somewhat of a replica of what Papua New Guinea has with its Manus Asylum Processing Centre. Australia will pay $40 million to Cambodia over 4 years and resettlement costs for an unlimited number of refugees from Nauru. Cambodia, with a population of over 15 million, is an impoverished nation that was ranked 139 out of 187 countries on the UN Human Development Index. It also has one of the worst human rights records in the region. But Australia's Immigration Minister Peter Dutton says Cambodia can offer a fresh start.
We're very keen to get a small group to go to Cambodia, which, as I say, will happen very shortly. And through that small group, we will demonstrate that Cambodia will provide an opportunity for a fresh start for these people. And we believe that will then send a very clear message to the remaining people on Nauru that Cambodia is an appropriate option for them to consider.
Australia has been widely criticised for its tough immigration policies, including sending asylum seekers to PNG and Nauru, where they face long periods of detention. Only a handful have agreed to go to Cambodia, despite Australia offering incentives, including cash payments of up to $12,000, according to Australian media.
The government is absolutely determined to make sure that we continue the success of Operation Sovereign Borders.
Most of the asylum seekers on Nauru are from the Middle East and Africa and attempted to reach Australia by boat via Indonesia with the help of people smugglers. In April, a document circulated among Nauru detainees painted a rosy picture of life in Cambodia, where it says a beer costs $1.51 and a packet of cigarettes $1.59. The documents promoted Cambodia as an ideal location for a fresh start, despite the fact that it is one of the poorest countries in the world. Well, Trukai Sports is coming up next, and I'll be back with all your sporting action after these short messages. Stay tuned.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. The All Search Pacific Games relay flew into Wapinamanda in Enga Province yesterday. The baton was welcomed by government and provincial administrators before commencing the first leg of the relay run. Travelling along the highway, making a few stops at schools, the team arrived in Wabeg town just in time to catch the Engan Mioks before their game in the Digicel Cup. EMTV's Lorraine Genia has all the highlights.
The Search Pacific Games baton relay team was greeted by Governor of the Enga Province, Peter Ipatas, and provincial administrators upon their arrival into Wapinamanda. As per the baton relay ritual as seen over the months, All Search representative was the first to reveal the baton, passing it on to Governor Ipatas and later to the staff of Bank of South Pacific. Straight after, the relay began through Wapinamanda, the runners surrounded by school students and local kids. Their enthusiasm showed as many continued running into the first stop at the local primary school. Students lined the one side of the square, Sing Sing groups formed another line, and spectators completed the ring around the small stage. Speeches were also made by Willie Kupu, and the governor stressed that the games were for everyone in Papua New Guinea.
Sporting event unites the country, so it's so important for this country.
Travelling along the highway to Wabeg, the first stop was at Lutheran Primary School for a quick touch of the baton. Then on to the high school, where the baton was run from the main road into the school, passing through hands to a number of students as the convoy waited on the roadside. It was then passed to the Engan kickboxing team, who ran and gave a quick display of their talents. The local football team was next to run with the baton.
A great pleasure and an opportunity for a lifetime for all the young boys in the community.
The relay team arrived in Wabeg town just in time to catch up with the Engan Mioks before their game with the TNA Lions. Into sportsmanlike fashion, the captain ran the baton to the opposing team and passed it on to them. Then the game began. The All Search baton relay continues. Lorraine Genia, National, EMTV Sports.
Over to athletics. Toya Whistle has beaten fellow Papua New Guinean Betty Burua to win the 200-meter final at the Oceania Championship. Both athletes ran an impressive 23.7 seconds with just a few hundredths of a second separating them. They then teamed up with Naz Marai and Peniel Joshua to run the mixed sprint medley relay, but were overpowered by Fiji in the final leg. PNG took out the silver medal. Donna Coniel is officially the Oceania champion in the women's 800-meter after finishing almost 3 seconds ahead of the rest of the field in a great performance. In the women's 3,000-meter, steeplechase Papua New Guinea's Rama Kumilgo wiped a 3.96 seconds of the previous Oceania record to claim gold. The new Oceania record now stands at 11:10.48, Kumilgo's finishing time. Moen Bueno won silver in the race with a time of 52.19 seconds, whilst Australia's Alexander Schaefer won bronze in 53.01 seconds in the men's 400-meter hurdles. In soccer, the washout matches of the Telecom National Soccer League held at the Bomana CIS ground saw Madang FC take on Admiralty in the first match, followed by Hikari United and FC Port Moresby. The semi-finals are scheduled for next weekend, with the top 4 teams to battle it out at the Laiwaden Oval in Madang.
Now the top 4 teams for the Telecom National Soccer League already confirmed. Madang FC were hoping to avoid a loss today, as that would see them sit in 4th place and face off against league champions Hikari FC. It wasn't to be, however. In the first half, Rodney Mobi has crossed after beating 2 players on the edge. So Michael Foster opened the goal scoring account for Admiralty, which saw them take a 1-0 lead into the halftime break. The second half saw midfielder Andrew Marumpa doubling the lead for Admiralty, however, and killing chances for Madang after a scramble inside the 18 yards box. To compound issues even further, it was substitute Clement Pecker who came on and scored in the 90th minute to see Admiralty take a 3-0 victory over Madang. Madang now face the difficult prospect of facing champions Hekari in the semi-finals. The second of the doubleheaders here this afternoon at the Bomana CIS College will see first place Hekari take on third place FC Port Moresby in what is built to be a big match, considering the last times that both sides met, it ended in a 0-0 draw. FC Port Moresby were heading to this match knowing that either a win or a draw or even a loss would not change their place, in considering that Madang had just lost by 3-0 against Admiralty. They did, however, take the lead in the first half through striker Harry Hillary Jenkins. That goal by Jenkins proving the difference. FC Port Moresby 1, Hekari 0, but the changes in the latter two leading into the semi-finals have not changed. It is still Hekari on the top, Lay City Dwellers in second, FC Port Moresby in third, and Madang FC are the fourth team that will make it into the semi-finals of the Telecom National Soccer League for the year 2015. Jeremy Mogi, National, EMTV Sports.
The National Soccer League will be a different league of competition come 2016. President of the PNG Football Association, David Chung, has made it clear the NSL requirements for next year and gave indications to the implications if teams fail to comply. Once this change becomes effective, the NSL will be the only structured and well-managed semi-professional competition in the country.
The National Soccer League has certainly grown and developed over the years, this year being one of the better years of competition. David Chung has been adamant on development for the betterment of the game, and as soon as the season for 2015 ends, a new chapter begins for the soccer fraternity.
This year NSL, I can say, in terms of standard, it has an improvement from comparing to the last previous 3 years. But we still have a lot of rooms to go, and we still have a lot of things that we need to guard the franchise clubs.
This means all teams will have to meet prerequisites and have a strong foundation in place to ensure the club is sustainable and will remain in the NSL from here on.
The new version of NSL will, all franchise clubs will have to apply a license. PNGFA and FIFA, through FIFA programs, is doing a licensing systems for all National League clubs. That means that any clubs that have to participate in National Soccer League first must apply a license from PNG Football before they are eligible to go and apply for us players in National Soccer League.
Failing to comply with these requirements, clubs will be forced to withdraw. However, Chung says in order for development to proceed, processes and structures must be implemented.
A proper office is just like a fly-in, fly-out clubs, which is not the part of our development plan. So that license system will bring them in order and helps them to promote and to develop for the future.
Clubs are still struggling with funding and grounds, and these changes will certainly affect participation in the competition in the coming years. Lorraine Genia, National, EMTV Sports.
Trukai Sports continues with highlights of NRL Round 9. Stay tuned, that's coming up next.
Trukai Sports.
Good to have you back with Trukai Sports. Round 9 of the NRL saw a thrilling match on Friday evening when Broncos snatched victory from Panthers in the dying minutes of the game, 8 points to 5. Sydney Roosters walked over West Tigers 36 points to 4, and Canberra Raiders thrashed Gold Coast Titans 56 points to 16. MTV's Dion Combang with all the highlights.
Saturday night football saw the New Zealand Warriors take on the Cronulla Sharks. In an exciting match of football, just when Sharks prop Andrew Fifita looked to have sealed the game for the team in the final 3 minutes of the match, Sean Johnson weaved his way through the tiring Sharks defense to score in the dying minutes of the game to steal victory for the Warriors. The Cowboys defeated the Bulldogs 23 points to 16. The first half saw the Cowboys race to a 12-0 lead going into half-time. In the second half, the Bulldogs came back strong, leveling the scores at 16-all. However, the Cowboys took the lead when Michael Morgan scored in the 68th minute and Jonathan Thurston sealed the game with a field goal. The return of Billy Slater for the Melbourne Storms saw them cruise to victory over the Parramatta Eels 28 points to 10. With the scoreboard at 10-all going into halftime, it was the Storm who put the foot on the pedal and raced away in the second half to secure the win. Dion Kombang, National EMTV Sports.
Well, that wraps up our Trukai Sports segment tonight. Coming up next, the weather details. Stay tuned.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
A quick look at the weather forecast for tonight and tomorrow in southern region, Port Moresby, Popondetta and Karama to look forward to cloudy weather with rain periods. In Momase, brief showers expected in Lake City, Wewak and Vanimore. In the New Guinea Islands, brief showers for Kokopo and Lorengau. And lastly, in the Highlands region, all centres fine weather and then morning fog. Now, before we go, quickly recapping our top stories again tonight. Indonesia's President Joko Widodo arrives for bilateral talks. Also, Gulf leaders issue a stern warning to the national government, and good news for coffee growers in Morobe Province. Well, that wraps up the bulletin this Monday, the 11th of May 2015. From the news team, I'm Tokana Hasavi. As always, thanks heaps for your company. You have a pleasant working week. Good night.